Welcome everyone to Agile Hartford for our first meeting of 2023. We're glad you could make it. We know there's a lot going on. We know there's some weather in Connecticut. Fortunately, we don't have to drive anywhere, but here we are. So really grateful to see everyone. As many of you know, we are an official sanctioned user group of Scrum Alliance, Agile Alliance, the Agile Leadership Network, designated safe meetup group, whatever affiliation there is, we got it. So how you can find us, visit our website, agilehartford.org. What I mentioned too is if you have a certification like a CSM or anything from the Scrum Alliance, you need SEUs to renew that certification every couple of years. All of our meetings count towards your SEUs, and you can certainly leverage that to record those. And I did that myself with all of our Agile Hartford meetings. So that added up to everything I needed it to add up to. So also you can email us at gmail.com, agilehartford@gmail.com. Visit us on Twitter, the Gram, LinkedIn. We have our YouTube channel where you can find recordings of sessions from our past sessions. And we have a Slack channel where us board members chat, and we're happy to include you if you like to hear us sniping at each other or being friendly with each other, either way. Right, Chris? So that's it. Here's our board members. There's myself, Steve Nunziata, in the upper left. Below me is Dave Kiersnowski. To my right is Larry Bach, our man in Texas. There's Janet Custer, who owns the East Coast region for speakers. Vin Sukraj is our social media guru. And Chris Rudnicki is our podcast, webcast, all things cast board member. She's also brings a lot of energy to the board, which we desperately need at times like this. So thank you, Chris, our newest board member. So you already have this from me, but you do have a survey in your inbox that included the Zoom link. So give us some feedback at the close of the session. Let us know how we're doing, what you'd like to see. This is your chance to help influence the direction of Agile Hartford. We've also, for those of you that did the year-end survey, we appreciate that feedback, and we are leveraging it to plan out the rest of 2023. A lot of great ideas. We're looking for a lot of opportunities on specific topics, on types of meetings you'd like to have. So we really appreciate our user group weighing in on those things, and please keep that coming, and it helps influence our direction. Sponsoring tonight's event, as they do always, our gold partner and our wonderful partner since day one is Eliason Group. So for that, I want to turn the mic over to Diane. Is it you or Rich?
It's gonna be Rich tonight.
It's gonna be Rich
tonight.
Me?
Oh my goodness.
Here we are, Rich. You're on.
I'm on. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate the time and looking forward to 2023 here with Agile Hartford. So, and I've appreciated our partnership for the last 6 years, I believe, 7 years. So looking forward to 2023. Excited to see what grows here. But for those who don't know, Eliason Group, we're a IT consulting talent solutions partner with expertise, helping our clients throughout their Agile journey. We offer coaching, training, workshops. We also offer teammates that can help get the work done. And we've got Diane Hiller on the line as well. She's really a great resource for any Agilists looking for opportunities. She's plugged into opportunities not only in Connecticut but across the country. So make sure you keep Diane in mind if you're looking for a new opportunity. But again, super excited to see what 2023 holds for the group here. And thanks to Steve and everybody for for the partnership. It's just been great to continue these events and virtually, and we look forward to some in-person events this year too. So more to come on that. But thanks, Steve, and thanks, David, for coming down to talk. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Rich. And Eliason will be sending David an honorarium for his gracious presence tonight on his presentation. So upcoming events. So we do have a full slate. So clear your calendars. Here's what's coming down. So you see February, we have Tommy Norman talking about building high-performing distributed Agile teams, which was a topic that the community identified as something they really like to discuss. You can see the rest of the calendar built out for March, April, May, and June. More detail as we get closer. What I tell you right now is registration for February's event with Tommy Norman is open on Eventbrite right now. So feel free to go in and sign up and join us again in February. I should point out too, Wednesday, May 17th in person. So we have Damon Poole coming down to talk about coaching for Scrum Masters. So if you have a company that is happy to host an in-person meeting, we would like to talk to you. It's been a bit challenging to get space in downtown Hartford or in the vicinity. So if your company is interested, we'd love to bring Damon in, and you can certainly bring in Scrum Masters from your company, of course, free of charge. We don't charge for our events. So let us know, contact us at any of those channels or agilehartford@gmail.com. Let us know if you can host, if your company is willing to host us. So here we go. This evening's presenter. So David Hawks is the founder and CEO of Agile Velocity, which is based in Austin, Texas. Agile Velocity has been around for a good 10 years at this point. David, is that right?
This will be year 13.
13. Wow.
Yeah.
So I remember the early-ish days when I was down in San Antonio, and we used to come out to Austin and meet up at Agile Austin. So we're really, really happy to have David here tonight. David's got a lot of wonderful experience. His presentation, How to Wrangle an Agile Transformation, really speaks to the Texan in him, as you can imagine. But David's got an incredible amount of experience to talk about how to really continue in the right direction with an Agile transformation, all the do's and don'ts. So with that said, please help me virtually welcome from Austin, Texas, David Hawks.
Thank you very much.
I am going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, David.
All right, let me grab that and readjust all my windows. Zoom thinks it knows better where everything should go all of a sudden. All right, and let me hit the share. So cool. Thanks for the warm welcome, and excited to be here today and talk about some of my favorite topics, easy topics like transforming big enterprises to Agile. Like, this will be easy stuff for tonight. So we're going to do a couple things today. We're going to go through some of the challenges. I've got some content, slide stuff that we'll be walking through, but I also put a link in the chat. I lost my chat window when I started sharing, but I also put a link in the chat. We'll be doing some polling, just using the Poll Everywhere app. So one way you can get there is just going to the link that's in the chat now, and playing along as we go. And then I'm also going to be opening up a tool, and we're going to be doing some interaction with this tool, just to answer some of the questions that folks have around, like, how do we visualize, how do we get a sense of where we are and where we need to go, and how do we guide things. And so we've been working on some tooling around that, and we'll show you some things there, and hopefully inspire some actions and things that you can take and back to your organizations and move some things forward, if you will. And so, as Steve mentioned, I have at this point, I'm kind of CEO of two companies, which has been kind of interesting over the last couple of years. So Agile Velocity, which is our services business transformation company. We have about 20, what are we at? We're 27 people across the country doing Agile transformation work. And but in 2021, we built a software product for managing transformations called Path to Agility. And I'll show you a little. We'll be doing some interactions with that tool tonight, so you'll get a sense of what that tool is all about. So and we'll walk through that. I had to drop one thing off of my profile this year because I decided to go on leave of absence with my certified Scrum trainer with Scrum Alliance, because last year I did one class. So I didn't think that it was worth keeping it. And I did that class just so Brad Swanson and Kim Antello could get their ACSM so they could teach that class. So that's the only reason why I did it. Let's jump in. So I put a first prompting question of just like, what are some of the biggest burning questions that you have about Agile transformation? And I'm just I like to do some improv too. So this way you guys will make me think on my feet, and I can try and weave some of these things into the talk tonight. So feel free to add anything more into this list or vote. I think you might even be able to vote some things up. Yeah, you can even vote items up there. So what to do when a transformation has happened without key components like continuous delivery, and then companies start to regress, some critical steps to get enterprises back on track. I think we can answer that tonight. It seems that agile transformation is all or nothing, right? So what do we do? How do we make interim milestones? I think we can answer that as well. How do we do that in a more iterative kind of way? We definitely believe, yeah, we like to we don't think about transformation as the big butterfly transformation as much as evolutionary change. We don't really buy into that a big butterfly, works for agile transformation. Right? I remember one organization, big enterprise. We got in there, 5,000 people in IT, and one of the big consultancies was in there, and they had been planning their transformation for 6 months and there was a plan to go 6 more months before they launched their first group into Agile. I was like, you're going to plan this thing for a year? How agile are you? And then I started working with the leadership team. I was like, you can execute your Agile transformation with Agile, like build a backlog. They're like, no, the big consultancy said we can't do that. We have to actually plan our Agile transformation. And they were doing that in a very waterfall way. We won. That consultancy was no longer, we won that battle. We made a lot of progress. We did a lot of good things. That big consultancy is no longer with that organization. Let's see. How do we break some terrible patterns caused by top-down mandates? Story points equals hours. Yeah, allocating. Okay, I'll see. I think I can see a way of weaving some of that in. And then there was one more in here. How do we ensure, I think it's the one at the top now. How do we best ensure consistent adoption of Agile in a team when others are in the company are dropping? Okay, so there's an iterative aspect. There's a kind of this mandate. So I'm just jotting some notes down. So when we leave this page, I'll remember. And I think the regression one kind of fits in with some of that too, the adoption type of thing. Okay, cool. Well, let's jump in. I've been doing a poll for about, I've lost track now. Probably 7 or 8 years now. The similar poll, I don't think I've changed any of the words on this slide. And I'm interested, and it's always interesting to me, like, what's happening in the world. So I'm going to ask you in a second to think about your organization and how you would rate your organization. Is your organization mostly in this like superficial agility? I call this like putting Agile lipstick on a waterfall pig. It's like we're going through the motions of Agile. We use all the words of Agile, but we don't really have much agility as an organization. Or maybe we're in this, like we're improving, we're trying really hard. We're trying over and over again, but we're maybe not yet gotten all the benefits of Agile. I call that improving agility. Or have you gotten to a level of predictability? Like, all right, we know our teams, how much they can get done. There's metrics, there's visibility to all the work, like we're tracking things. Or have we gotten to a level of what we call fast agility, where we actually have been drastically shortening cycle time? Somebody mentioned some DevOps practices in your question. Like we've started to implement those kinds of things as well. And we're actually delivering value faster to the market or to our customers. We call that fast agility. So everybody got an idea in their head of which one they might be? Go ahead and throw that in the poll. You can also, if you just want to use your phone, you can text the word velocity to 22333. That's another way that you can do the poll, and we'll kind of see how our little horse race happens here. So so far superficial agility is winning, but we only got 8 results in. Where's everybody else stand? Okay. 44, 33, 22, no fast agility yet. Oh, improving agility is taking the lead. And we'll wait for maybe another answer or two here. And so we're going to talk a little bit. Oh, we got a tie now. We're going to talk a little bit about why is this the case. I have some disappointing news. This curve hasn't changed much in the last 8 years. It saddens me to say, but the reality is we still are struggling with a lot of the same things, which is why this topic of how do we wrangle a transformation. And we were talking about before we started, about organizations where we're like all in on Agile. And then, now like Capital One's in the news, like we're all Agile and now we're not, get rid of all those Agile people. Like Agile is just going to be how we work, but we're not going to have anybody that helps us get better at it. We're just going to integrate that. I'm still interested to get somebody that really knows the story behind some of that. But so we got 46% in superficial agility, 38% in improving agility, 15% predictable, nobody in fast. And there's actually a fifth level of kind of agility that I'll share with you, and kind of the model that we think about that I didn't even put in the poll because of this result that we normally see. And so over time, the data that we often see is about 50% in improving, about 30% in superficial, and I think it's about 15 and 5. I think 5 in fast agility is what we've seen historically. So you're not too far off of that. And every time I run this survey, it's still pretty close to that. So we're going to dig into why. Why is that? Why do we have so many organizations, and some of your transformation challenge questions that you put in where like, all right, we're going through the motions, or we're getting these things dictated. Why are we not getting beyond kind of the basics and into true, like if this is a collection of believers, right? Like we all know that Agile can do good, and we know what those benefits can be. We've maybe seen it in pockets. Why can't we get big enterprises, or even groups of, say 200 people, 200 developers, or 20 teams? Why can't we get those to, a little bit further along the maturity curve, whatever you want to do? So we're going to talk more about that. So I want to hear from you first. Like, what are some of the top challenges you're seeing that are preventing your organization or organizations you've worked with before from getting to like that faster, predictable, more adaptable organization and delivery? So, pop up 1 or 2 things in here. I'm interested in seeing kind of what challenges y'all are experiencing. So, all right. So we're gonna hit management right out of the gate, right? Lack of management buy-in. And this one you can also vote up things as well. So dictated to date, so date driven, which probably also means like more project driven versus product driven. Let's see, unwillingness to let go of traditional management. Yeah. So I don't have this slide in here today, but as y'all are talking about, or we're putting these things in here, I'll kind of give a sense of where I think the history of transformation has gone over the last, say like 15 years. So the early days, right? Our manifesto was signed in 2001. You think about 2001 to 2010, most of the Agile change initiatives, I wouldn't say that we were using the word transformation at that time. Agile adoption was really like grassroots. Like I was introduced to it in 2003 by a developer. Right? Is that how all of y'all's transformations are starting? Like developers are going, we need to do Agile. Like, no, that's not where it's coming from today. But back then it was like developers, hey, there's this new thing, a process around how we can do it. And developers were introduced as like grassroots. And then late aughts and into the early, 2010, 2011, I would say all of the transformation efforts that I saw were really, if I think back at it, were team level transformations, very much like Scrum transformations, right? It was everything like we were figuring out how do we do this, not just with one team, but like all of our teams doing Agile at the team level. And that's where all of the focus was. And then we had the advent of all of our scaling frameworks started to emerge, right? Because we started to, how do we apply that at a level of like 10 teams coordinating work or 100 teams coordinating work? And so then we got, scaled agile and less and Scrum at scale and Nexus and DAD and like all of these things started to emerge because we learned how to do it at a team level. So we started to say, oh, now we can see how it could apply here. And we started to do that. And then after that, now, as we exited kind of that decade, we started to see things like business agility emerging, and what I would call more organizational agility, things like lean portfolio management. How do we do strategic planning at the portfolio level, product versus project thinking, and changing how we do funding of all of these types of things, right? And that's kind of the era that we're in now. And so when you talk about earlier, when we said, well, we had transformations and then it stopped and then we started a whole transformation over, I want you to also think about, well, maybe what we were doing was team level transformations. And then that kind of played out. And then we started doing more of a scaling transformation. That's kind of played out. Now we're doing more of an organizational level transformation. Each time that's a whole new change initiative, right? And we need different ways of adapting. And because we're now playing at the organizational level, leadership is front and center, right? We could do a lot of things with a single team before without having all levels of leadership. We cannot do a strategic funding change without not only the leadership within, say, technology, but we need the leadership in technology, the leadership in finance, the leadership on the business side. We need potentially even the CEO. We need lots of different players involved. And that's why, as we've evolved and as we've gone through our space, transformation work has gotten more and more complex and complicated because we're dealing with bigger and bigger and bigger problems. And each time we do that, our challenges require, another level of education now, not just middle management. Now we got to get senior leaders, right? And if we're going to optimize the organization of delivering value, then we're starting to change org structures, or your team of teams layouts. And you know what? The most senior leaders is going to have to approve that. So they have to be on board of why we're doing this. So lack of management buy-in might be, all right, what have we done to help educate them around their impact? And I see a lot of coaches even some of our own coaches used to take kind of this stance of like, you know what, the senior leaders need coaching. They need to opt into coaching too. Like we're coaching other people. It's the senior leaders need coaching. Well, I don't know any senior leader that's going, you know what, you're right, I need coaching. But I think what we're finding is if we can engage them, think about how we engage teams. We didn't just go to like the developers and say, y'all need coaching. We didn't just go to the Scrum Master and product owner and say, y'all need coaching. What we did was we engaged teams by saying, let us help you figure out how to manage your work and operate in a different way. Well, let's think about, what do senior leaders operate? They operate the strategic portfolio and those levels of decisions. So the way I believe into those conversations is to start helping them figure out, how do I operate strategic agility, right? As opposed to going and telling, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a better leader. You're going to get booed out of the room every time. Unless you've been that, senior VP in said big enterprise. Who are you to go into the room and tell them that you know how to lead better? They've been leading for 30 years and they're successful because they're in the role that they're in. But what they will admit is, I don't know how to run a lean portfolio, right? Or do that in an agile way, or how to do that with strategic agility. And we have this opportunity that COVID created that says, oh, people started to realize 3-year plans are sort of ridiculous, right? We have a new opportunity that we didn't have prior. Right. I remember right before COVID, I did a leadership talk and I had, y'all heard of VUCA, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. I did that slide pre-COVID and a lot of leaders were just kind of like, I think I kind of get it. And And then I did the same presentation right after COVID and I introduced VUCA and they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Right. So we have that opportunity to leverage. Here's 5 things that kind of tie to some of the stuff that y'all came up with that are kind of, to me, 5 reasons that I see things are struggling in our transformations. And to me, number 1 for me is what I call implementing practices over outcomes, or just trying to do all the things in the picture If we just do all the things in the picture, then we'll be agile. Do y'all know what picture I might be referring to that has all the things, right? If I just do all the things, then and the reality is I might need to do those things, but if I just focus on trying to implement all the practices, I probably won't achieve the outcomes because it's the wrong measure of success, right? I remember one big enterprise we were working with, and we were like, all right, so what's your kind of like key results for the year, your success factors? And they came up with, this year we want to launch 20 arts. That's our measure of success of our agile transformation. Launch 20 arts. And I'm like, that is terrible. That is a terrible measure, right? Like you could launch 20, and they did launch 20 arts, and they claimed success, but they weren't working really with any more agility than they were before. They just had added a whole bunch of other processes and roles and other things around it. And versus setting an outcome of we need to be delivering, faster, or we need to increase our employee engagement or our customer or business partner satisfaction with us, or what, something that's a measurable business outcome is really what we're after. And if we got to get clear on those goalposts, and we're all aligned to hitting those goalposts, not just trying to do all the agile things, right? And then figure out which agile things will help us achieve the goalposts that we're after. We already kind of talked about moving on from just team level agility. We'll talk about some other levels. We think about system level, which is like team of teams, and then organization agility. Training with, if we just educate, some people are like, oh, we got smart people, just go to 2 days of training. And now even trying to get 2 days of training is impossible. It's like, oh, we can't do 2 days of Zoom meetings, so we got to do 8 2-hour micro workshops, and the reality is nobody ever gets in learning mode because they're just jumping from one Zoom meeting to another Zoom meeting. It's not like when we did it before, it'd be like, all right, everybody's going to go for 2 days to some other part of the building that they normally never ever go to. They're going to get into learning mode. They're not going to be distracted because their laptop's going to be down. And now forget it, right? It's like I got Slack or Teams or whatever open. I'm just jumping from one Zoom meeting to another. So even training is actually really difficult to get the engagement that we need. So we're going to dig into a few more of these as we kind of go in. But just first, from fun, this one's the fun one. Beyond the launching 20 arts as your bad transformation goal, what other bad transformation goals have you seen as like, here's we're going to measure success of our transformation by what are some things you've seen or heard from others? I'm interested. This is just for us to have some fun with our industry here. Let's see what comes out of that. Anybody have any? Oh, here's some coming in. Counting credentials, like cert, like, yeah, there we go. And how many, we got everybody certified, and then we certified people to certify other people. So that's fun. Yep, just implementing. Yeah, that over indexing on implementing versus success. Oh yeah, launching an art without even changing the current team structure. It's like, oh, we already have these teams. They're an art, right? And it's like, no, you just. I remember one organization, they had a group called QMO, which was basically their QA quality group. And the leader of that group, and there was 500 people in this QMO organization. I remember the leader of the organization coming to us and said, hey, I just observed a PI planning and we want to do that too. And I go, what do you mean you want to do it? She's like, yeah, we should do PI planning for our QMO work. And I said, no, I didn't say it as bluntly, but you know what my answer was like, no, your people need to be a part of all of the other PI plannings, not you need your own PI planning. But that happens, right? It's just like, we're just going to put the wrapper around the existing org structure, but the existing org structure is not the right structure. It's not aligned to value. Hiring consultants who will make us better. Yeah, like we take a really strong stance of like, our job, it's not our transformation, right? Our job's to work ourselves out of a job. If we're coaches, internal or external, right? Our job's to work ourselves out of a job. and go help somebody else. It may not be that we're working ourselves out of the company per se. It's just that we're going to work ourselves out of working with this group because we got another group we need to go work with. Most of your organizations are probably got, most of the ones we work with have thousands of people in technology, and then the organization, there's plenty of work to do, but I don't want to work with the same people every month, every year, right? I want to go help somebody else. Forcing without understanding the why. That's definitely one pattern I see as well. So let's go ahead and I'm going to flip us over to a different tool here. We're going to do an activity. Let me tab over. Where did it go? All right, I'm just going to exit from that. Then I can get there faster. So I'm going to go into, this is what I'm showing here. Y'all see a different screen, right? You don't see slides anymore. This is a tool we call Path to Agility Navigator. And we're going to do a little activity in here. Let me get it queued up. I'm going to copy this link and I'm going to post it into the chat. So click the link in the chat so we're no longer in the poll everywhere. And this is one of the first exercises we do with leaders on any of our transformation engagements. The first thing we ask them is why? Why are we here? What are we here to change? If we did all the agile things, or if we're successful, what is the business outcome that we're after? So everybody gets, I'm going to open voting here, and I'm going to give everybody 3 votes, 1 vote per business outcome. What do you think for your organization are the top 3 reasons why they should make the investment of time and energy and money or whatever it is into trying to improve their agile ways of working, doing an agile transformation, agile adoption, whatever words you want to use there. Let's see what your organization would vote. So you've got three of those to vote for. These are what we call the 9 business outcomes of Path to Agility. These are the 9 things we've seen over and over again as far as driving kind of transformational change. And again, this is one of the things we'll do early on to get us oriented around a business outcome, as opposed to talking about all the agile things, right? And if we're talking with senior leaders, it's not about the agile things are not the important stuff. The important stuff is what are we doing from a business outcome perspective. So let's see, we've got 9 out of 11 people have their 3 votes in. So I'm going to close voting in 10 seconds. So 10, 9, 8, get your votes in. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's see where we're at. So we've got these little blue numbers show us, and let me make this a little bigger so y'all can see. All right, so speed's our number 1 today. 6 votes for speed, 4 votes for predictability, 3. We got a 4-way tie with 3 at continuous improvement, market responsiveness, innovation, and customer satisfaction. And so the thing that this exercise, and you can use this exercise as well, again, it starts to get us aligned. And so think about this. If you did this with your senior leadership team, whatever you define the organization that you're working with, do you think when they came into the room that they think they're all aligned on their why? Right? They think they are, right? And then you do this activity, and do you think they really are aligned? No, right? And what does that lead to? If they're not really aligned, then that means they're not messaging the same way, and we're not messaging consistently. And agile transformation is hard, it's disruptive, it's chaotic, it's stressful, right? In the organization with people, it creates fear. And if everybody is communicating different messages, then there's not really a coherent why behind it. There's not coherent, there's not alignment, there's not the same energy all going towards the same direction, right? I did this activity with one senior leadership group that failed this activity, where after an hour, because we had it on a Miro and we did a bunch of different things and discussions, they still could not agree on not just what they're number one, like if we can get to a number one, that's awesome. But I was just trying to give them like top three, and they could not agree on their top three. And I turned to my team after that and I said, this transformation is going nowhere because this senior leadership team is not a team. They do not want to play with each other nicely. They all just want to go do their own thing. The CIO was not in the room. This was the team that reported to the CIO in a 5,000 person, actually a little bit more than that, organization. And I was like, unless the CIO gets them to align, right, then this is not an enterprise level transformation. We did a lot of good work in pockets across the organization, and we engaged in groups of 200 and 400 and did little, like what I would call mini transformations. And I mean, that's what really happens with big enterprises, is it's like a transformation inside of a transformation inside a transformation. And we did a lot of really good things here and moved some things forward. But the reality is at that point, I knew that this was not going to be a whole org transformation, even though that they said they were giving lip service that that's what they wanted to do. And I was like, until this happens, and they didn't really want to align, I was like, that's not going anywhere, right? And it played out like it never really, they never really engaged at that level, and so it tells me a lot when we can do this activity. Now, another question that I'll ask, I'll usually facilitate this like I did, where we didn't have any discussion. Let's just throw some things out there. Then when I'm facilitating, and you can facilitate, then you say, all right, let's talk out loud. Why did some people pick speed, and somebody makes a case for that? So, hey, why did somebody pick predictability, and you make a case for that, and get the stuff out loud, and then force like another vote, kind of like planning poker. Like, all right, let's everybody talk about it, and then let's vote again, right? And so in this tool, I might do something like that, where then I say, okay, these didn't make the cut. We're down to 6, and then I can open voting again and we could revote. But you can do all that in Dots and Miro, and using the tools that you have for that. Ultimately, we want to drive down to the top 3. And one of the questions I'll use when I'm talking to leaders is say, all right, so given that these are the things that we want, what really is the most important in the next 3 to 6 months, right? So if you think about that, we ultimately want customer satisfaction, but what we need in the next 3 to 6 months, what do we need to focus on in the next 3 to 6 months? It might be, it could be quality, because we have quality issues that are keeping us from speed, and speed is keeping us from market responsiveness. Market responsiveness is keeping us from customer satisfaction. So I don't know that let's see if I have the graph in. Yeah, I have it. So what you probably can see is like there's some dependency across these 9 business outcomes. One thing can lead to the other. I use this picture also to say, hey, nobody picked employee engagement. Is your company having any issues with people being engaged right now? Right, but leaders, I mean, I thought with like the Great Resignation, like all of a sudden employee engagement was going to surface, and it hasn't really. It's interesting that y'all voted speed up, because pre-COVID, speed was number 1. Speed was the thing that was the most important. What do you think as soon as COVID hit, what do you think emerged as the number 1? Like, so think about Q2, Q3 of 2020. Anybody want to venture a guess on what you think surfaced as the number 1 here? Let me unhide those. Surface is number 1. So right after COVID hit, market responsiveness comes to the top, right? Our market shifting, change is happening, right? So then all of a sudden, market responsiveness is the thing for the rest of 2020. And then coming into 2021, for most of 2021, the interesting thing that started to surface by mid 2021 was innovation. Innovation became, and my hypothesis there is like the market shifted, we're losing market share, and we got to have more innovative products because we've got to get something else because the market is now somewhere else, right? And then I predicted in 2022 that employee engagement was going to surface as the number 1, and it never did. Like senior leaders they're not recognizing. I think it should have still, with the stories that I've heard. And because of the fact that it unlocks a lot of these other things, but organizations are not at the same place. So interesting. Anyways, it's going to create a good conversation for you and get your organization and your leaders aligned in the right direction. That's job number one from there. Any questions on that? I just want to pause at this kind of business outcome stage and feel free to, I've got the chat open, so also feel free to, I'm usually pretty good at being able to keep an eye in two places. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to add those into the chat as well. And or use like the raise hand thing too, and that in Zoom that works well too. Okay. So stop me if I keep going and if there's anything that you want to jump into. All right, so let me go back into the slides here. And we're just going to use the chat window for a second. So in the chat window, I want you to put, so here's the scenario. You're coming into a new organization, could be within your company, but like, you plopped in, new organization, and somebody says, I want you to assess if they're doing good agility or not. What are you looking for? I want you to write 2 or 3 things in the Zoom chat of like, this is what I would look for to know if a team or an organization was doing good agility. I would be looking for, and just, plop, and you can, put them in independently, put one, hit enter, hit another in enter, and we'll just kind of see what starts to show up in the Zoom chat. So we're just using the Zoom chat for that. We got to leverage all of our tools tonight. All right, customer centricity. I like that one. Okay, what else? Team engagement, quality delivery, customer sat. All right, what else? Nothing else. That's it. Still, there's Jennifer. Sorry, lots of things to look for, but mostly lack of things that make me cringe. All right. Cross-functional, multidisciplinary teams, financials driven by value stream, not projects. I like that one. Good product ownership and visioning, right? So as you're looking at these things that are typed in here, I want you to think about, are the things that are in here, are they, let's think about, I'm going to define or put 3 terms out there: practices, capabilities, or outcomes. Right? So I want you to think about, like, what I don't see in this list are a lot of practices, right? I didn't see anybody write, they're using Jira. They do daily scrums, right? Maybe we're looking for, do they have retrospectives? But more importantly, are teams continuously improving, right? We're not really looking for practices. Practices doesn't equal good agility. We might need certain practices to, like, a retrospective might help us have the capability, which is continuous team improvement. But what most of the things you wrote are either what I would say a capability, like a team has the capability of, being customer centric. A team has a capability of maybe delivering fast. The team has a capability of continuously improving. The team has a capability of quality delivery, right? Those are capabilities. And then the other type of thing that I see in here are what I call outcomes, right? The outcome of the team is highly engaged. The outcome of customers are satisfied. And then so I would also think about, like, cross-functional, multidisciplinary teams help us do what, right? And so I want you to, what I'm trying to encourage, and we're going to be digging into this more, I want you to start thinking less about the practices, right? And that's what most of our documentation is. If you click all around the SAFe site, you can get definitions of every practice. But what was more important is when sometimes we go argue with people, they're not doing the right practices. You're not doing it right. You're not doing this. But what we really should be doing is trying to say, what we're trying to develop is this capability. And we think that, do we all agree we want this capability? We want to be able to deliver fast. We want to be able to deliver value every 2 weeks. Do we agree we want that capability? If so, now let's talk about some practices that might be able to help us get there. Well, we're never going to motivate others to change by just telling them your process is wrong and I know the right process, which is I know the right practice. So we want to think about capabilities and develop capabilities. And what we're going to look at is we also encourage organizations to assess capabilities, not assess practices. Right? You know, how many times have you seen like a survey out there that says like, are teams doing daily scrums? Are teams doing retrospectives? Are they doing the practice? Do you have an RTE? Do you have an ART? Are your PIs 12 weeks or shorter? Right? Like those are practices which may or may not lead to good agility. And more often than not, they lead to superficial agility, which 46% of y'all said your organizations have, right? So there's, again, over indexing in our industry on the practices because that's what's documented. That's where all the books are written about. But what we really need to focus on are capabilities. And so we think there's a gap between those 9 business outcomes we have and the agile practices. And that's what we've tried to attempt to map out in Path to Agility, is to map from those 9 business outcomes to kind of what we would call more agile outcomes. The difference between those are like agile outcomes are what we agilists talk about that we want, but our CEO would never talk about. And the CEO talks about the business outcomes, and then we talk about agile, like psychological safety, right? Like those are things we geek out about, and that's an agile outcome, but that's not necessarily a true business outcome. That enables some kind of business outcome. And then we've mapped out 100 capabilities that we can look at and start to assess our organizations on. So, and then ultimately from there, we can decide what practices might help us kind of move the needle on getting more mature, better adoption, hitting our business outcomes. So to put that into kind of, let's crystallize that a little bit. We're going to do another activity over here. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Go over this is what we call the Path to Agility map. We're going to come back to this, but there's a couple dimensions I just want you to look at here. So across the top, you see align, learn, predict, accelerate, adapt. These are what we call stages of agility, and where we see many organizations. So superficial agility is kind of all the way to the left. And then improving agility would be that learn stage, but we got to align around a why in a line. And then we can get more predictable, which is, you know, where not that we know exactly what we're going to deliver 6 months from now, but like predictable delivery. We can get 5 things done every 2 weeks, and we're predictable about it because we have visibility, we have metrics, we have tracking. And then accelerate is shortening cycle time, right? Accelerating our value delivery. And adapt was that 5th stage that I mentioned wasn't in the survey earlier, about are we adapting based in this, you know, based on what the market or our customer is demanding? Are we a highly adaptable organization? And then you see there's 3 levels that we have mapped out: team, system, and org down the left, because we feel like there's capabilities we're trying to develop at the team level, there's scaling things that we're trying to do at the system level, and then we have an organizational lens. And all 3 lenses are important for transformation. We cannot transform at only one of these levels, right? And we got to the point a couple of years ago where our transformation business, when somebody comes to us and says, we just want coaching at the team level, our answer is no. Like we just started saying, no, we're not going to just come in and engage at the team level because we're going to waste your time. We're going to waste our time. We're all going to get really frustrated because if we're not engaging at the organizational level, if we're not changing things from organization and system and team, then you will not actually transform your organization. So it doesn't matter if you just do things at the team level, and you can't really just do things at the org level because you need to change things at the system and team, right? So you need to, we call it like full stack transformation. Like you got to play at all 3 of these levels in order for the organization to truly reach the results that they're after. So we're going to do a different kind of poll. This is what we call an agile outcome poll. We're just going to do, we're going to assess our capability at the align and learn stages of Path to Agility. So I'm going to give y'all a different link here in the chat. And the way this is going to work, I'll go ahead and just open voting on this first one once you get in there. I'm going to present to you an agile outcome, and we have 11 of them here. So we're going to go through this pretty quick. And I want you to assess, think about a context in your organization or a client organization. And I want you to kind of think about that context, and I want you to kind of assess from that context. So it could be like, you know, this system that you work with, or this VP's organization that you're coaching, or whatever, wherever you kind of fit. And the first one we're looking at here is compelling purpose. So the organization is aligned and motivated by a clear organizational purpose, vision, set of objectives, and a compelling purpose for the change and improvement initiative. So your choices on your view are that we have fully met that, we are awesome at that, we have everything we need, or all the way from down, mostly met, partially met, slightly met, not met, or we have none of that as an organization. Okay. So I'm going to close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so this starts to give us an interesting view of, all right, we've got some work to do in this area. And again, if we were facilitating this in real life, what we'd say is, all right, you know, kind of like planning poker again, why did some people vote slightly met? Why did some people mostly met? Now, y'all are representing, you know, 10 different organizations. If you were all from the same organization, we would want to know why we're not aligned, right? And sometimes it's somebody's like, you know what, I was mostly met until I read and a compelling purpose for change. We don't have that. And somebody might go, oh, I missed that. You're right. And then we can open voting and change. So we're going to kind of fly through these and kind of get a sense of where we are. So the second one is rollout strategy. So an Agile leadership team has been established. We've got a transformation roadmap. An Agile leadership team is kind of our term of like Cotter's guiding coalition. Like there's some leadership team driving the change, taking accountability. We've got a plan of how we're rolling out, how it's going to impact our organizational structure. Like we've thought about how we're going to, oh, sorry, I haven't opened voting yet. We've thought about how that's going to play out in the organization and what that gap is, what that that change plan might need to require. So let's see how this comes in. We'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so here's another opportunity. And so this isn't uncommon, right? A lot of times you think about the stages: align, learn, predict, accelerate, adapt. A lot of times we're in improving and we never really aligned around a why. We never really aligned around the impact. We didn't really do the true like value stream mapping type of activity to create the right system structure. And so we see some gaps here. And what we're going to see is how we can use that kind of awareness to drive some actions that we might want to take. All right, let's look at our next one. Products defined. We have clear definition of products that are serving and driver for organizing the systems and teams. So our systems and teams, system, again, we're using that as a term of like team of teams, our system of value delivery, that system of value delivery is clear around kind of a product definition. So let's look at where we are with that. So again, it's like more in the slightly met. So some opportunity for improvement there. All right, value alignment. This is kind of referring more towards we have the system of teams organized around value delivery, like we have realigned our teams to be kind of tied into those products, to be aligned with value, to be tightly aligned with the business and our customer stakeholders, as opposed to, like a lot of our organizations where it's like, everything goes everywhere. It's all project driven, those types of things. So let's see where we're at in 3, 2, 1. Oh, that's our worst one yet. Yep. And that to me, like this is to me, if we're going in and doing big transformation, and it was hit on in somebody's earlier, one of the big questions for the day, right? Which is like, how do we handle that? So part of it is helping with awareness of where maybe that gap is, and then being able to highlight, and we'll show you how we can highlight how not having this is probably impacting our ability to meet or not meet our business outcomes that we're after. So that's how we're going to see this connection coming full circle here at the end. All right, team form, team. Now we're down to team level. So that was kind of system. Like we did org system. Now we're at team in the align stage. So teams know, let me open voting. Teams know their stakeholders, how their work contributes to their larger goals. They have agreed upon how they're going to work together. So this is like teams have good team agreements, definitions of done, the roles are defined, the roles are fulfilled, right? We're looking for things like that. So let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so we got, partially or mostly met for most of us on that. And that's not uncommon, again, that we would have more green at the team level than maybe system and organization. Okay, now we're into the learn stage. We're back up to organization. So we have one here called action enabled. So this is, think about kind of from a change management perspective, we've got a team that is facilitating the overall transformation. We're resolving organizational impediments with urgency, and we're continuing to communicate the change vision, the wins, right? We're keeping the transformation alive and well and moving forward because our leadership team is engaging in that. So let's see how we're doing here. We got mostly not met and slightly met, but we got somebody that's in the mostly met. I like that. So just like any self-assessment, one thing that I want you to think about leveraging here is take note of where there is work to do, right? Because that's now going to pinpoint for you some opportunities for like, oh, these might be things that we can go look at organizationally. All right, we just got 4 more here. Team empowerment. So this is at a leadership level. Are leaders empowering their teams? Are leaders shifting to team-based responsibility and performance? Are they letting go, if you will? Like leaders need to let go in order to create space for the teams to take ownership. Are we creating and fostering a culture of learning and improvement? Are they starting to demonstrate agile leadership on their own? All right, we got 10 votes here, and not surprised. Leaders are all to blame. It's all the leaders' fault all the time. Well, I mean, and it's like it's like every State of the Union of Agile survey is just it's leadership, it's management. And again, because we're now at a level of organizational change, and and every time I see a survey that says culture mismatch, right? Well, culture is a result of behaviors of the organization. We can't change culture directly. Culture is a result of our behaviors. Our people mimic the behaviors of our leaders. If our leaders don't shift their behaviors, then our people's behaviors won't change. Therefore, our culture won't change. That's why we point so many fingers in that direction. But what we've got to figure out is how do we engage the leaders in an effective way, as opposed to just saying, you're leading wrong and I know better. All right, product value management. We're now back down to the system, or in the middle in the system level. There's clear product management responsibility established. Customers and stakeholders are engaged partners in sequencing work along with, so again, like the customer, the business is in partnership with, if you're a technology transformation, we're in partnership, not, the old school, like I'm throwing over the wall and I'm holding you to dates, which I saw one of the issues that we had earlier with one was voted up earlier. So here we got, some work to do around that. And in the IT enterprise space, product is a new concept, right? I mean, fairly new. And like I see the world of our customers, like we have software product companies and we have IT enterprise companies. And software product has been doing this product thing forever, and funding has been at a product level. IT enterprise, I remember, what was it? It was about 2015 timeframe. We were working with what's Anthem's new name? It was Anthem at the time, but Elevate or whatever, and they were like, product, we have a product management group, they build insurance products, and I was like, no, you build software products too. Then they just couldn't fathom it, right? Like they just couldn't fathom it at that time. And now everybody's talking about project to product, and finally I've been trying to scream that message for a long time. All right, system level, we're coordinating how teams are working together. We're managing handoffs. We're managing dependencies across the system in an effective way. So we're starting to figure out how do we coordinate work across teams, and starting to get visibility to the dependencies so that hopefully we can start to reduce those dependencies. But at first we start with visualization as the first step. Admitting we have a problem is our first step to recovery. Is that what it is? So, all right. So we've got slightly met, partially met, a little bit better on this. And then let's go down to team. So now we're at the team level. The teams have all their work visible, right? So not just their work in progress, but like visible backlog. We have more than a sprint's worth of backlog, right? Those kinds of things. We can see the work that's planned, the work that's in progress, the work that's done. All of that is visible to both the team and stakeholders. All right, so again, we see more kind of green, if you will, at the team level. And then one more, last one, I promise. And then we'll see an interesting view. So team ownership. So the team is self-organizing to collaboratively take ownership of their work and improving continuously. So our team's starting to take ownership. Do we, are they handling their own sprint planning? That doesn't mean with a scrum master, with the product owner, right? But those roles are being fulfilled. Teams are starting to go through the motions and starting to have retrospectives, starting to take actions on that. Is what we'd be looking for here. So we're a little spread, but we're more positive than some of our others. Okay, so once we do something like that, right, and we can go through and get self-awareness of where we are from kind of a capability level, then that starts to inform what we call the path to agility map here. And so on the path to agility map, again, we see the stages and levels across the top and the side there. And these are each of the ones that are colored. Those are the ones that we just answered those questions on. And we can see, two places where we're really red, right? And when most of them are orange, we got our best place is visibility created based on how we just pulled. So we've got that. Now, what we started to do is start to correlate our business outcomes to agile outcomes. So if we look at, and y'all said speed was the thing that y'all are after the most, right? So if we click on speed, and then it helps us to start informing like, okay, these are the ones that we really want green, right? These, if we're after speed, then these are 8 or 9 things that are the ones that are going to move the needle most on speed. But it doesn't mean that that's where we should start, right? We don't start with market agility right out of the gate, because if we can see these dependency lines in this map, right? That market agility is dependent on faster time to value is dependent on decision agility, which is dependent on ability to focus, which is dependent on product value management, which is dependent on products defined, which, all the way goes back to compelling purpose. So the reason why we might not be achieving speed is because we have no compelling purpose in the organization. We have no alignment. We have no rollout strategy. We don't even have the right teams aligned to value, right? And until we do the things over here on the left in a line, we're probably going to have a hard time getting the things over here and accelerate, right? And so what we want to do, like a lot of times what happens with agile coaches, I'm one of those, is like we show up a lot of times in helping people and we're like, all right, I got all these plays, right? All these things that I could do. And we show up and we're like, all right, what do we say? It depends. I'm going to seek for understanding. Right. And so I seek for understanding. I assess where I think you are. And I say, hey, y'all should think about doing this. Right. And then we do a little bit more and we say, hey, now you should try and think about doing this. And what's happened is we have all of this information in our heads. We have all the cards that we could play, but they're all visible to us. Right. And we talk, all the good coaches, we all talk about like our job's to work ourselves out of a job. Like we're trying to enable others to be successful. It's not our transformation. We're here to help them transform, but it's they've got to lead their transformation. And so what we've done with Path to Agility is try to say, all right, let's get explicit about all these cards, all these plays, all these things in our head. Let's make those visible so that leaders can be informed with the gap of where are we today, where are we trying to go, and what is it going to take to get there, right? And so within each of these areas, so if we go into value alignment, we have, that breaks down, remember I mentioned 100 capabilities. So 100 capabilities within this, we can look at and go, all right, if we're trying to get to value alignment, then we need clear value definition. Do we even know how we deliver value, how the system delivers value? Do we have the actual like system identified, defined, the boundaries, what it takes, like, from a value stream mapping type of activity? And have we oriented our teams around that, right? Those are sub capabilities that we could then start to assess even more details. So if I jump over to a different company here, a different organization, which has more data in it. So let's say this was our view. Then what we could do is start to say, all right, value alignment, and then we can assess at a more detailed level, right? If we had more time, we just did it at the higher level, but we could do it at a more detailed level. And that starts to give me even more clues of like, hey, we're pretty good in value alignment, but the thing that we're lacking the most is teams aligned to value. Or, you know, if I go into value delivery coordinated, it's like, all right, we have good system ownership, but we don't have good cross-team coordination or the ability to measure. Those might be opportunities for us to work on. I can start to get down to that level that then starts to inform our actions, right? And instead of us just getting there and saying, like, you're not doing Agile right, here's the right Agile things, which isn't going to motivate anybody to change, we can start to say, hey, we all agree that we're after speed, right? And we all agreed that that's the thing that we're after. And here's where we are. And let's look at let's identify together, what's the next step that we need to take to get closer to speed. So that answers a little bit of the question somebody asked in the beginning of like, how do I iteratively get there as opposed to big bang transformation, right? I need to, in order for me to get there iteratively, I need to know where I'm going, but I need to know where am I now, so that I can inform my next step, my next experiment to go run, right? Oh, we want to get better at value delivery coordinated. Okay, what's the thing that we could do next? Let's start running that experiment. Let's implement that new practice. Let's test how that's going. Let's see if it moves the needle on us, on our capability of getting better in that area, right? These little trend lines that you see on these little pictures, that's showing over time, because this is data where I could say, here's where we started and it was all red. Y'all ever been at that organization? Yeah, you know, but then we went along and we started to work on things in a line. We got a little bit better. We got a little bit better, right? And now we're starting to improve, right? So we got to be able to monitor progress, and it's really hard. We can talk about the business outcomes and we can put measures on those. But sometimes in organizations, it takes a long time before those needles move, right? If you say, all right, our goal is to get to customer satisfaction. Well, it's going to be a long time before that's impacted. How do we show progress, right? You know, there's a ton of people, right, pontificating all sorts of things about, you know, why Capital One got rid of 1,000 Agile people, right? But the thing that we struggle with in our community is demonstrating value for the activities that we do as a coach. How do we go and show to the organization, this is the thing that we're doing that's valuable? And that's part of what we're trying to solve here is, how can I show progress? How can I show that we're making progress, that we're doing more things, we're adding more capability in the ultimate goal of getting faster time to value? How do I show that progress? And it's by showing progress on the capabilities that we're trying to do. We could drill down into different teams, right? We could have all of our different teams. We had an organization do this for 300 of their teams, right? And then get the roll-up of that, right? So that each team is then now starting to update the progress that they're making, being able to look at all the work items. Like, I don't have a whole lot loaded in here, but like, what are all the improvement items across all those teams? Wouldn't it be nice to see if there's patterns? Everybody's complaining that their product owner sucks. All right, and so all of these work items are connected to a capability, and then we can start to see if there's patterns of where there's impediments emerging, where there's improvement items, and start to get visualizations of that, right? Is what we're trying to do. All right, so questions, anything that's spurring? I think I'm pretty much. Yeah, there's one poll that I'll do as we kind of, if anybody's got any questions, please add to chat, and then we'll just do, oh, I hit the wrong button there. Can't just hit F5. All right, one last thing in the poll everywhere, if you still got that open, is, all right, we just went through, these are the 11 Agile outcomes that we just assessed. And so as you were going through that, is there any of them which one would jump out to you based on kind of that self-assessment that you would say, you know what, this is the one that we need to go work on as an organization that needs the most attention in our organization? And so we'll kind of close with that today. See where we're at. So far, we got 4 different ones. So no pattern. Oh, 5 different ones. All right. See if there's any pattern starts to emerge. And again, feel free to add any questions in the chat. Anything that's spurring or any comments? Here we go. Okay, now we got at least two people on products defined. Great. Okay, so let me just click. We looked at that. There is if you want, I know y'all will post this the slides. I'll share those with the group. If there's anything, if you want also, we've got some stuff around those common pitfalls, a white paper, some other content around these transformation challenges. If you're interested in any of that, just drop your email in the box there. And last thing that I'll leave you with is if you are interested in learning more about Path to Agility and how you could use that yourself. So some hopefully you can take away thinking about things from a capability perspective. You can do the business outcome activity, but if you want to we have a one-day workshop that teaches you about all of that stuff and then licenses you to use all of the Path to Agility content. And so getting access to the whole capability model, and that gives you a trial license to the software that we looked at. And then you could decide if that's something that you want to continue with, but it does, pre-COVID, you remember the time before COVID? You remember when we used to get together like in person? You remember those days, like the old days? The first version of Path to Agility was a set of cards like this. You remember workshops where you do things on a table, or like you'd put a transformation backlog on a wall. So like we have all of the capabilities and all the outcomes in this form. And if you attend this class, like you get access to this. We also turned all this into a Miro. So like you get access to that as well, to be able to use with any of your workshops or anything like that. So that's part of, so that we could rename this workshop as like a leading agile change workshop. But it does get you licensed to use all the Path to Agility stuff. Oh, I have the link queued up over here, but it'd be nice if I shared it with you, right? Let me put that in the chat, and we'll also email that to anybody that puts their email in. So myself and I think Randy Hale will be teaching the class on February 9th. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks here. So if you're interested in joining and learning more about all this stuff, I'd love to have you in that next session. But other than that, I'm here to hang out for any questions or anything like that, but I'll turn it back over to Steve.
No, thanks, David. This has been a really eye-opening presentation I think we all have very common challenges. And I think for me, it's just looking at it from a different perspective was just really, really insightful. So much appreciated there. We do have a few minutes. So are there any questions anyone wants to ask?
I don't have a question necessarily. This is Larry. Just, I like, David, how you put all the, characteristics review. I mean, we've seen them in other charts, seen them from other companies, but I guess the way that you put them together just resonates, at least with me. And I echo what Chris put in the chat, that I can use some of this information today, tomorrow actually, but yeah.
Okay, good.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll come in from like a coaching perspective, right? So often I've seen coaches, and I've done this myself, where you kind of land in a place and you're looking around and you want to make an impact, and you just see so many things that you'd want to change. And there's this overwhelming sense of either I'm never going to get them there, or like, how am I supposed to choose what to work on? How do I prioritize the thing I do first, right? Because everything's important, right? We all love Agile so much that everything's important, right? I love the matrix where you kind of walk through the steps of tell me what the outcome is that's important to you. And then you kind of like grade out the stuff and how to focus. Because I think a lot of coaches, that will be helpful for them to not only have help in having that conversation with leadership, but that kind of like pre-filled in roadmap to say, hey, you know, it might apply differently in your organization, but here's like what you need to focus on. And here's like the 4 things, not 5,000 things of an 8,000 things spreadsheet. Like, here's the path, here's what you're focusing on, and it provides like a focus. And that, I think that also helps with messaging to leadership too, right? Hey, leadership, don't expect me to move the needle on the 7 other things that are gray. I'm moving the needle on this. We agreed that it's this, right? So it's very much like a whip limit type of thing, but that's something that I really appreciated about today.
Yeah, and here's the impediment to us achieving this one we're going to focus on that I need your help with, right? Like, and in another, it's like related challenge we have is most of our transformations we're talking about are enterprise level, which means there's more than one coach. And if I have 5 coaches in a room and we say, come up with what's the one next thing we should do, how many answers are we going to get? Probably about 20. Right. Yeah. You know, like we all have 4 things we could do. And so one of the challenges we have is like, a lot of times I see these big chances, say we have 5 coaches, 10 coaches, everybody's off on an island doing different things with different language. And so we need the flexibility to do things differently, but this helps us do it with an aligned language that then we're not confusing the crap out of our leaders. We're all on the same page. And it helps us get to focus because we all know like getting 5 coaches focused on the same thing is hard because we get so excited about all the Agile things, right? And like so yes, that's definitely
even if we are working on the same objective, it's very possible the coaches have different levels of skill in that objective and they are applying it differently to where the leaders are like, hey, Chris is my coach and she's awesome at this, but oh, you know, Larry's my coach and this is going terrible for me. So then the coaches are like, well, why can't I have Chris as my coach? Why do I get stuck with Larry as my coach? He's not good at this. You know, Larry, you're good at everything, but I'm using it as an example. Like, and then it creates that dynamic of like not a unified team, even though you're working on a unified objective, you know? So I think like the path is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So you mean it's not only just leadership that's the impediment all the time?
No, what I heard, it's you, Larry. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any last questions before we call it a night? All right, we'll be sure to share out any materials that David has shared with the group. Again, very insightful. David, really appreciate you joining us. I think we all can take a lot away from this presentation. Great perspective, really nice to see how things kind of tie together. And again, we really appreciate you joining us. And for Agile Hartford, we would all like to thank you one last time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great job, Dave.
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Good job, guys.
Sure to
That
sign
was
up in
excellent.
February. We'll see you again.
Excellent.